Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. I don't know why I say it like that. But today we're going to be looking at one of the most overpowered single target damage abilities in the game, which is Charged Strike. Charged Strike is a pretty massive damage effect, and it doesn't really look like that on the character screen. It only says it does 6,618. Which doesn't really seem like a lot of damage. And it's to be expected because the sheet damage on a lot of these abilities is just wrong. The sheet damage on Charge Strike doesn't accurately display how much damage it does. The sheet damage on Lightning Strike doesn't accurately display how much damage it does. The sheet damage on Lightning Fury doesn't accurately display the damage it does. And it just seems like none of these abilities actually can be trusted on the actual character screen, because you have to actually go out and play with them and see how they work to understand the damage output. And the damage output for Charge Strike is kind of insane. In fact, we're going to go ahead and pull up a calculator here real quick, and I'm going to show you the damage output for this particular ability. So let's say, for instance, that I have a target that is a size 3 monster. The size of the monster does matter, by the way. So the size 3 monsters are going to be hit by all 12 charged bolts. So we have a total of 6,618 times 12, which means we're looking at about 79,416 damage per attack, which is pretty insane, but there's more. So if we can get our resistances into the negative, like for instance, if we are using, say, a ridiculous infinity polearm or something of that nature, which is pretty darn cool. So let me just show you this real quick just for fun. So right here, I am utilizing an infinity polearm. On a Spearzon, specifically a lightning Spearzon, they can get a massive negative 55% resistance from the polearm itself. And then the Conviction Aura will give them another negative resistance, which will bring the monster into the negative resistances, which means the damage is then multiplied even further. The lowest that you can ever possibly go in terms of negative resistance is negative 100%. And that is obtainable with an Infinity Polearm, a Griffin's Eye Diadem, the Lightning Sunder, and some other various things. You can strip down a monster down to his lowest possible amount of resistance. So what does this mean in terms of damage output? Well, it means times 2. So when a monster is at negative 100% resistance, that means they are taking times 2 of the normal amount of damage that they would normally take. So you can generally dish out about 158,832 damage per hit with Charged Strike. But that's not all. If you act now, you can get our Ginsu knives. No, I'm not even joking, because Charged Strike has a physical damage component as well, which means that if you are actually able to hit the target, you can also apply the physical damage, crushing blow, open wounds, and deadly strike, as well as crit strike. So you can get even more damage out of the effect than you would otherwise normally think. And Infinity, which is pretty much the best in slot weapon for a Lightning Spearzon, has 40% crushing blow. It has negative 55% enemy lightning resistance, and it also has pretty decent damage at 184 to 404, with a very nice Conviction Aura, which reduces the monster's defense, which makes it easier for you to hit the target. So when you go out and you actually attack monsters with this ridiculous weapon, you will notice that the monsters will just be obliterated from existence. You don't even really have to worry about lightning immune monsters. The monsters just die. Now, it is also important to note, however, that smaller monsters, like for instance the Spike Fiends that you just saw, are size 1 monsters. Size 2 monsters are things like Oblivion Knights, and size 3 monsters are things like, like Diablo himself, or Pit Lords, or Urdars. Those are considered size 3 monsters. So, size 1 monsters, you actually will have trouble hitting with bolts because they're so small, and sometimes you will only hit them with 1 or 2 bolts, and not even all of them, like maybe just like 1 or 2 out of the 12 will hit the size 1 monsters. Whereas size 2 monsters will generally get hit by a decent number of the bolts, anywhere between like 6 to 7 and size 3 monsters will get hit by every single bolt. Let me see if I can show you the difference between a size 1 and a size 3 collision. Refresh the game real quick because I've already murdered everything. And as you can see, we are set to players 8. So let's go to River of Flame. There's usually some nice size 3 monsters in River of Flame. And here we go. We've got Pit Lords. So when I hit the Pit Lord, you can see that he's hit by every single bolt. When I hit the Abyss Knight, you notice quite a few of the bolts actually make it past him. This is because he's a size 2 monster, not a size 3 monster. And you will notice that there's issues with this particular ability on attacking smaller monsters. The smaller the monster, the less bolts hit the monster. So if we were to go to somewhere like Flayer Jungle, which is full of size 1 monsters, size 1 monsters are the worst in terms of being hit by this particular effect. And you'll notice that a lot of the bolts will actually go through the monster that you're hitting. But the good news is that as they go through, they'll still hit targets behind the monster. So you don't have to worry about them getting completely wasted if it's a really large group of size 1 monsters. It just might not actually kill the monster that you're attacking, which is unfortunate. Now, really, you don't utilize this for single target monsters. I mean, for groups anyway. So Charged Strike is your single target killer, like when you're fighting one monster at a time. Lightning Strike, which is the other ability, is the one that you're going to be using for most big groups. And the reason why is because it hits everything within the group. It can jump a total of 46 times, and it will continually jump back and forth and hit all the monsters within a certain radius. And if you're in a really big group, you're going to be using Lightning Strike. If you're in a small group with a less monsters, you're going to be using Charged Strike. Charge Strike is your main damage killer for these little tiny things. It's also important to note that when you run out of mana with Charge Strike, you will just regular attack. So if you run out of mana completely, you will no longer be using the ability, and it won't really tell you that you're not using the ability except for the red out down here, and you'll just be regular attacking the target. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you do have mana steal, you'll be able to at least bring some of your mana back and then use the ability again, which is certainly helpful. Some abilities don't work that way, believe it or not, that when you run out of mana, some of them will just not let you use the ability at all. They won't even let you regular attack. Whereas Charge Strike will let you regular attack when you run out of mana, which is very useful because you can rebuild your mana to then again use more Charge Strikes. And speaking of the mana cost, Charge Strike does have a pretty high mana cost of 15 per hit, which can rip your mana down pretty quickly, especially if you have a very fast attack. And as you can see, it also uses mana even if you are just simply swinging at the air. So you can see my mana pool here, and even just swinging at the air, it uses mana. Some abilities do use mana when you swing at the air, and some abilities don't. This one is definitely one that does. The pretty cool thing about this ability is that you don't even have to fully build it. And it's also useful to Lightning Fury Javelins. Because Lightning Fury Javelins have to build Lightning Strike and Charge Strike as well to get their synergy bonus, Lightning Fury Amazons will also have access to Charge Strike. At a reduced damage output, it's not going to be quite as high as it would be with like a full Spears on, but you definitely are going to get some pretty good damage out of it. Single target wise, it doesn't matter whether you're using a spear or a javelin, and as long as you have the synergies built for it, it will still do good damage even under some of the worst situations. It's just not going to do like the most amazing. The real benefit of Charge Strike is its boss killing ability. I think that's honestly what it's the best at, because like we said, with size 1 monsters, there's a very good chance that the charge bolts simply miss completely and go through him to the other side. With size 2 monsters, about half of the charge bolts will hit the target. But with size 3 monsters, all of the charge bolts hit the target. So your highest damage output with Charge Strike is on the larger monsters in general. You know, there's tons of large monsters out there. Even when you go to places like Crystalline Passage, size 3 monsters tend to be just about everywhere. That's a size 2 monster right there. That's a succubus. And if you want to like pull up a listing of the sizes of the monsters, you can do that. But like these Death Lords or these Champion Bloodlords are definitely size 3 monsters. So when I hit them with Charge Strike, they're going to eat the entire thing. And you can tell that they're eating the entire thing just by how like quickly their HP just melts into oblivion. And I want you to take that in for a second. Those were Players 8 Champion Bloodlords, okay? And I just absolutely annihilated them from existence with Charge Strike. And that is really the power of this ability, is it's just absolutely amazing when it comes to single target damage output. If you're fighting a large group of monsters, you're better off using Lightning Fury. You're better off using Lightning Strike. And the cool thing is you can weave Lightning Strike and Lightning Fury in. Like if you're in combat, you can obviously just tap off a Lightning Strike and let it do its work, and then continue with your Charge Strikes. You don't necessarily have to use Lightning Strike over and over and over again. In fact, I would avoid using Lightning Strike over and over and over again because it doesn't actually hit the targets more than once. So Lightning Strike actually has what's called a next hit delay, and Charge Strike does not. This is one of the reasons why Charge Strike is so powerful. If you've never looked up next hit delay, I would advise you to take a look at next hit delay for a lot of abilities, because some abilities have it. Like, for instance, Multi-Shot and Lightning Strike have next hit delay, whereas other abilities do not have next hit delay, like Charge Strike or Charged Bolt on the Sorceress do not have next hit delay. And these things are actually really interesting in terms of like what abilities can hit targets within a certain time period and what abilities can't. I'm going to bring up a screen here real quick for those of you who are interested in this, and it's going to go over really quickly like what monsters the hit delays apply to, or what skills the hit delays apply to. So this is a brief kind of synopsis here. We've got Multi-Shot is a duration 4 frame delay. This just simply means you can't hit the same target twice. You'll notice, though, that on the Amazon, Charge Strike is missing. So there is no next hit delay on Charge Strike. But there is a next hit delay on Lightning Strike, which is the ability that we were talking about earlier. So Lightning Strike cannot hit a target more than once within the 4-frame delay. So spamming it over and over and over again, it doesn't have a really good effect. You just kind of want to tap it every now and then, let it do its work, and then tap it again later. The same way that you would do Multi-Shot, firing it in succession. But because the lightning bolt is traveling like this, back and forth between the monsters, each time the lightning bolt travels back and forth, the next hit delay would apply. So if you have multiple lightning bolts traveling back and forth at the same time, and they hit the same target at the same time, only one lightning bolt is actually going to dish out damage. Whereas with the beautiful Charge Strike, it doesn't matter. All 12 of the bolts can hit the same target at the same time. Now, some of these abilities have absolutely terrible hit delay. As you can see, Shockwave have 25 frames, which is 1 full second. Blade Sentinel is 25, which is 1 full second. Twister, Tornado, they're 25. Volcano is 10, and so forth and so on. And this gives you an idea of, essentially how quickly you can spam an ability and whether or not spamming the ability is actually a viable tactic. It's also important to note here that like some abilities that you can hold shift and just simply click and they will work. Like, for instance, Multi-Shot. If I wanted to hold shift and click, the Multi-Shot would fire, whether there's nothing nearby or not. However, if you notice, when I hold shift and click with Charge Bolt, nothing comes out. Despite the fact that it's burning my mana, nothing happens. I need an actual target to be able to cause the lightning bolts or the little charged bolts to emit. Otherwise, nothing happens. I think that's pretty much it for this ability. It's definitely one of the better physical lightning skills that the Spearzon has. And without a doubt, Charge Strike kind of works its way into a lot of builds. Whether you're a Lightning Fury Javelin, whether you're a Lightning Strike Javelin, you're still going to use Charge Strike for your single target. Even when you're a physical Spearzon, a lot of the times physical Spearzons will still grab Charge Strike and try to put a couple points into the synergies because it's just really nice to kill the physical immunes. You can also even utilize Charge Strike with a bow build, believe it or not. There are several bow builds that involve like 20 points in Cold Arrow and 20 points in Freezing Arrow, and then they have like Lightning Fury as a secondary ability because they want to be able to utilize Lightning Fury. And then to build Lightning Fury, you have to build the synergies, so you end up with Charge Strike as well, and you can use that for your single target damage, which is actually kind of nice because their Freezing Arrow is actually very bad at single target damage, but it's very good at AoE damage. And having Charge Strike in a myriad of builds is certainly very useful. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and keep watching.